and Julie will be here. So we currently have 5, which is a quorum, right?
Right.
We'll have a 6th shortly.
So it is on.
So I think we are good no matter what.
I think it's the
Yeah.
There's lots of
What's that?
No,
No, I think we're good now.
we have 5.
Oh, yes.
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I think we're good now, but Julie will be here shortly anyway, so, all right, so I would look for a motion to approve the agenda, and I would, ask maybe that we could move the audit presentation to the beginning of the agenda, if people don't mind, so that, we could, I don't want to keep him here all night, yeah.
Right.
Any other additions or deletions?
Kelly,
Yes.
I noticed on your reorg section, there's no place for there's no item board clerk, which is different from the recording secretary.
Correct. Thank you. And we did talk about that. It was just a mistake. Sorry. Any others? Do you want to make a motion then to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Can you see and hear us, Amber?
I can see you. I know that Dave made the motion, but I did not see who seconded it. Jen? Okay, thanks.
All right, so we will do the auditor's report. Oh, sorry. All those in favor? Forgot that part. Thank you. Is he like, oh? Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. All right, so do you want to introduce, is it John Akule?
Yep.
Yep.
John. Everybody here's John.
Hello.
We can't hear you. Hang on a second, John. We gotta.
It's up almost.
See if I can test it. Check 1, 2.
So it's up as far as it goes.
So am I still dim?
Yeah, you're gonna have to use your teacher voice, John. Teacher voice.
Let's try this.
There you go.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so apologies about last meeting. I appreciate you squeezing me in the schedule tonight. Like Cheryl said, I am John Boulay. I was the audit manager this year for Ludlow-Mount Holly. I am also accompanied by our audit director, Heather Hunter.
Wow.
So I've got the audit up in front of me. I made some notes. What I'll do is I'll quickly go through some of the major statements, schedules, and some of the note disclosures that show up later down in the audit. Now, Cheryl, would you like me to share my screen, or do you guys over there have a copy of the audit in front of you?
So it's in the folder, so they're probably not looking at it. So sharing your screen would be great.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so can everybody see this?
Yes. Can you make it bigger?
Can.
That's better.
better.
You can also zoom out to a little bit. So I'm going to start here on, let's see, page 17. Page 17, this is the balance sheet for your governmental funds. These are just the major funds. So the 2 major funds this year were the general fund, capital reserve fund, same as prior year. We've got this other governmental funds column, which is for you guys, just the special revenue funds. We have separate schedules later down in the audit that kind of break that out a little bit. The only comment I have on this page right here is that there really were no major changes from prior year. Assets are in, correlation with your liabilities and same with prior year. If your total assets were 923,000 this year, they were very similar last year. Across the board for your governmental funds. One thing I will talk about right after this is the fund balance. Right here, you can see all these fund balance amounts. So 909,000 would be your total fund balance in your governmental funds at year end. Let me scroll down a couple pages here to page 19. Page 19, this is the income statement of those same funds. And what we can see here is more detail. It's the activity, the ins and outs. Right here is that net change in fund balance. So we do have that prior year fund balance number of 732. You add in that 176 and you've got this 909 here, which is your ending fund balance for your total governmental funds. This 909 is good to know, but I would say this general fund column, this 679,000 would be the real number you're more focused on. This is where your budget is posted and things like that. So, later down in this presentation, I'll talk about the budget to actual. We'll get into the nitty gritty there, but at the end of June 30, 2024, general fund balance was 679. Let's see. So those are the two major schedules at the front of the audit with the major funds. I'm going to skip ahead now to note 6. Note 6, long-term debt. There really wasn't much difference from prior year. I'll have to be honest. Bonds payable, you have 2 years left on the bond. It looks like 1 more year with the note. And then you just have a copier lease. All the descriptions are right down there. The next few notes I like talking about are these fund balance notes, your net position. So it looks like note 10 through 13 discusses, the restricted, the non-spendable, assigned, and any deficit fund balances you have. So in, statement C and statement E at the top of the audit, you see that one number. But down here in these few notes, you can see that it's all broken out, student activities, scholarships, prepaids, things like that. Note 19, this is a restatement note. GASB 100 came out and basically said we need to start putting these in the financial statements as error corrections. And, I've gotten a few questions about this before. This error correction is not your error. This is, something that we had restated from prior year financial statements. So this is what we did. We moved 646,000, into the non-major funds, which is the special revenue. I'll get to that later on as well. Schedule A, this is going to be your budget to actual for your revenues. We can see the final budget was 7.668, but you actually received 7.736. So you received more than you anticipated by 68,000. So it's always good to be in the black there. And, this goes hand in hand with the next schedule, Schedule B. It's your budget to actual for the expenses. And same thing here, you underspent the budget in totality by 113,000. So, receiving more revenue, underspending the budget, those are both good. And that's one of the reasons your fund balance increased this year. So I'm on page 72 now. And when I was talking about statement C, the non-major governmental funds, that right-hand column, it's just special revenue funds. So, it's broken out here at the end of the audit. You can see if we go down, we've got our income statement as well. Really no major changes from prior year. A couple more pages down, we get even more into the nitty-gritty. We've got each special revenue fund broken out. Some are grants, student activities, scholarships, things like that. So one thing I will point out here is if I scroll down to our income statement, these numbers that I've highlighted here, these are those error corrections. So, we're moving money from the student activity into these non-student activity accounts. And then same with this normal student activity fund. So, we're increasing that student activity fund, increasing the non-student activity and taking money from LES student activity. And, in aggregate, if I scroll down here, the 646 is very immaterial in the grand scheme of things. So there's nothing to worry about there. If I go back all the way to the top of the audit here, and I'll end on this. So one thing I like showing people is this unassigned general fund balance, 651,000 right here. You know, if you divide your total expense budget by 12 to figure out how much money you need to, withstand 1 month of expenditures, it comes out to 639,000 roughly. So, that's kind of a rule of thumb for me, is try and have at least 1 month's worth of expenditures in there. So you're good there. It's in excess of about $12,000. So over the last couple of years with that increase in fund balance, I don't see any issue with that decreasing, in the near future. So something to keep an eye on, something to think about. But that's it for the audit. We also send out a management letter, which offers, some insight to strengthening internal controls. We ended up testing some expenditures, some deposits, journal entries, things like that. And we didn't have any comments after testing those internal controls. We really didn't have any areas that could use strengthening. I think Cheryl runs a pretty tight ship over there. So, kudos to her. We didn't find anything that could have been strengthened. So that's that.
Their eyes are glazed over.
Right. It's a lot.
Do we have any questions?
I just have two little ones, and I'm not even sure they're really for you, but why would we have received more? Was it just a difference in anticipated taxes, or
I'd have to go back to look at the detail of it, but I know our interest was higher.
a little
than
bit higher? So, yeah.
Anticipated.
And then my other question, when you were saying you were using a word and some sort of fund, I don't remember, student fund maybe. And I'm just curious, at one point we had little funds that were like to buy technology or specific to buy library books. Do we still have those, or are they now
So
one?
on the audit, it's grouped under student activity.
Okay, all right. And that when you still do carry some of those funds. Okay, well, those were my only two.
And if you want to look at that in depth, go to page 75. It's also called Schedule E. It breaks out all those special revenue funds, and there are a few. You've got LES non-student activity, but there's also LES student activity, and then there's also a regular student activity fund there as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
This is probably a very dumb question, but when we underspend the budget, these are just governmental funds that we're talking about here in this report, or this is like everything?
So, John, you want to answer that?
Sorry, I was hard hearing. What was that?
I was trying to understand if this report is just for the governmental funds, this whole report was governmental funds, or this is our entire budget?
So Ludlow-Mount Holly is, only has governmental funds. So if you're thinking of a town, they have water sewer funds sometimes. Those funds would be considered business type. So, your general fund, your capital projects fund, the special revenue funds, all those are governmental funds. And I think, the question is about the budget. So when we talk about the budget, we're just talking about general fund monies.
Okay, so when we underspend, that goes into the reserves then, which is not earmarked for anything. Specifically, it's just surplus, right?
Correct. It would go into that unassigned fund balance number on statement C, and then can be used, for anything you guys decide.
And most of the other things in those special accounts are designated for a specific use, and that's all we can use. So they're restricted.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Anytime.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thanks, John and Heather.
And I would, it's okay. I would just ask for, you did receive a clean opinion. I don't think John touched on that. And so that is the highest opinion or that you can receive through an audit. So congratulations to you as well. Take the wins when you can get them, right?
Talking about governmental funds, what about tuition from students that are transferring in from another district? Would
That's part of our revenue.
Yeah,
within
that's
that?
part of the other revenue source. It is included on your general fund financial statements.
Yeah, and if you want to look at that number, that specific number, Schedule B, that budget to actual for that income statement, that revenue, it breaks it out. Instructional services breaks it out from tuition to athletics, expended, prior year expenditures, things like that. So, there's more detail lower down in the audit. Schedule B exactly would be the one that you're looking for.
Are there other questions for John or Heather? Hi, Julie. All right. Thank you for your time. That was enlightening. I don't know, a lot of numbers.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you as well. Have a great rest of
you.
your meeting.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So I'm just sorry, when that moved, I got all, did we lose somebody, but we didn't, I don't think. All right, so then we are up to approval of minutes from February 12th, 2025, our regular meeting. And should we not have special meeting minutes? I just am realizing that we have an extra budget meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the
like-
informational.
Oh, from the annual report?
But I don't think we have minutes from that. The annual ones, we got the annual.
Yeah.
Right, but
No, but we had,
we had a special budget meeting a week after, I'd have to look on my phone.
Approve those in February.
yeah, I think those,
Wait,
changed.
okay,
I remember approving them.
Yeah, Kelly,
yeah,
I'm looking at your February minutes. Your February minutes, you approved the regular meeting and the special meeting that happened a week later.
okay, thank you. All right, so then I would look for a motion to approve February 12th, 2025, regular board meeting minutes. Say that again?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. I thought you said proofread them and I was like, oh, their mistakes.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Kelly,
Yeah,
I have some corrections.
okay.
And, I hate to draw that attention since they're my errors. On the, in the minutes section, the January 8th, 2025, in the text of that, I wrote January 8th, 202. I neglected to put the 5, so I need to add the 5.
All right.
And under the agenda section, I typed, the motion carried without opposition twice.
Oh, yes. All right. Any other? No? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Lane, we can't see Jamie, so when we're voting, we'll have to do. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Just have to make her talk.
Right. All right, then the next. Oh, should I not be doing that?
Yeah, no, Lane should be,
Yeah, I just realized.
yep, I checked with legal. Board meetings are by board members, for board members, so you're the chair until you're not the chair.
Okay, so then I would look for nominations for board chair.
I'll nominate Kelly.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Thank you. Are there other nominations? Anybody? All right, then hearing none, a motion to approve Kelly as board chair. This feels weird, isn't it? Sweet.
So moved.
We did. All those in favor? Sorry, we're not here.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're good. Thank you. Then I would look for a board vice chair. It is currently Julie. Anybody?
You want to continue doing it, Julie?
Sure.
So I'll nominate Julie.
I'll second.
All right. Yeah, I think so, yeah. So we have a nomination and a second for Jen, if you can't hear Amber. Any other nominations for board vice chair? Okay, hearing none, I would do all those in favor of Julie for board vice chair.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Beautiful. And then recording secretary is currently Amber,
I'll nominate Amber.
20 times over. Any second for Amber? All right, any other nominations for recording secretary? Sorry, I don't know why I can't do this. All right, so motion and a second. So all those in favor of Amber as recording secretary?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. And then I'm just writing this down, sorry. Then the warrant signer, that was Maria, who is no longer on the board. So we would have to look for somebody new to do it. It involves, is it always online now?
We're trying, we do majority of the,
Okay,
someone
so,
can come in and sign. But it's every 2 weeks and you review the accounts payable. And if you have questions, we can send you additional information. Not that you sign off on those as well as the payroll.
so it's really mostly online. It's every 2 weeks, you get an email, you look the things over, you just make sure there's no glaring mistakes. And then DocuSign it or whatever.
It's more than just, it's things that just stand out. You should
Yeah.
be looking at.
In terms of just payroll, or there's,
Safety.
oh, okay.
So
So all the
bills.
invoices that, yeah.
Is it, I'm sorry, I'm listening because I did it before and I couldn't do it because I had to be at the office. If it's DocuSign, I don't mind doing it again.
I know Jamie.
All right.
But I just can't come in to do it.
We've been doing it electronically for a little while now.
I did it this month and it was electronically. I didn't go in, so. All right, so we have a nomination for Jamie. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Any other nominations? All right, all those in favor of Jamie being the warrant signer?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, perfect. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie, yes.
Thank you.
And then we would look for a clerk, and we don't use this one a lot now that we have Amber, but it's like if we, for some reason, Amber isn't available, you would have to take some notes. Usually she does them from the recording though, but it might be the time, start and end time of meetings is sometimes we fill in. What else?
Signing up on the loan documents for tax anticipation.
And that's a once a year thing.
And traditionally, most districts, the clerk is the one that oversees the voting operations for school budgets. I don't know if that's been the case here.
I'm happy to take that position.
Somebody want to nominate Katie?
Oh, no.
Okay, and second for Katie.
Second,
Any other nominations? All those in favor of Katie Kolchowski as the clerk?
aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, there we go. We're all set on reorg. And we've done the board oversight presentation, so we're good there. Communications.
I think, we have to do the representatives of the supervisory union.
We,
The grid's on the back.
yeah, we have that and we just barely did it. So we were just gonna review it and make sure we filled in
Okay,
as it's slightly different now, but it is there. And we literally just did it a month ago, right?
yeah, no, I'm not suggesting we change it,
Yeah.
only that as part of the reorg, I thought we were supposed to do it.
Do we have to officially do it when we just did it?
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay, I don't mind.
And it fits under the heading, so.
Yeah. All right, so currently on facilities, it is Dave and Kelly. Does anybody else have a burning desire to be on the facilities committee? Do we have to have three? I mean, two seems to be working. We're not active at the moment. The policy committee, Jamie has been our representative, and is that still working, Jamie?
It's been difficult. We've had meetings. I haven't been to any.
Does somebody else want to be on the policy committee? You describe the policy committee. Do you want to describe it, Jamie? You've been on it most recently. It's mostly just reviewing policies and wordsmithing little things, but I don't know how currently meeting.
That's basically what it was.
Yeah, you might, I don't know, is it less now than it used to be because TRSU is switching over?
Usually with policy governance, one of the things that the superintendent's assigned to do is to review policies at least once a year and then recommend what needs to be changed based on the mandates.
So it's probably once a month or soon to be less based on restructuring at the TRSU level. I can help Jamie. All right. So can we do Jamie and Katie K? And that'll, between the two of you, hopefully one of us has representation, and that would be good. Teacher bargaining council is currently Jen and Katie Benson. That's still working, and that should be moving forward.
And then the staff bargaining.
Yeah, I noticed that's not on the grid.
And support staff.
Who is currently on that?
I am.
Me and Katie K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Transportation currently is Dave.
Fortunately, we haven't met.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a big one at the moment. I've been doing food service, another one we meet once a year generally. I'm happy to continue meeting that high demand. Unless somebody else is begging for it, you know. Superintendent evaluation, that's all of us. Tuition, I've been on that. If anybody wants to join us, it's also, I mean, we met a little bit a while ago, but it's pretty inactive. Anybody? Good. TRSU is currently Kelly, Katie Benson, and Julie.
And I'm an alternate.
Dave is an alternate.
Yeah.
Dave, would you be interested in switching with me? I would do the alternate. It's getting hard for me to go to the meetings, but I can keep doing it. I don't know if you are interested.
I think I can do it.
All right. Do we don't need a motion for that, right? If we're
What I would do is after you've made all the changes, I would do one.
okay.
Acceptance.
Okay. So Julie will now be the alternate and Dave will be the regular member. I've been going to the RVTC meetings. Hi, Dave. I've been going to the RVTC meetings. If anybody wants to get on that ship, I will gladly jump it, but if not, I'll continue. Anybody? They're once a month. They're in Springfield. That's why I volunteered to do it, because the day, it's like the first when's TRSU? I don't know. It backs up. I think it's the first Wednesday because it backs up right near TRSU. I end up out 2 nights in a row.
So it's always on a day I have a regularly scheduled meeting. I don't remember which one it is.
I think it's the first Wednesday. I don't know. I don't mind doing it because it's in Springfield and I feel guilty making other people drive down there when I'm already there. But if somebody wants to do it, it's not like I'm
burning desire. I was just.
yeah. It's yeah. I'm trying to think. We must have just had it on the 5th. Yeah, our VTC. So it's the first Wednesday of the month.
had 4 meetings this week alone.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, are you out of your
Are you
mind?
done yet? Yeah. All right, I will continue to do that unless somebody wants it, but I just feel bad making somebody drive to Springfield when I'm already there. All right. And just Jamie, you'll be up in 2026. Jen will be up in 2025. That has changed now because you just got
Yes, Lewis said I'm 2 years.
2 years. Okay. And then Katie just got elected. I don't know what her years are, but we can find out so we can have it on here. Julie, you'll be up in 2026. Dave is 27. I'm 27.
Yeah, no, I should be 28 since I was just.
You were reelected this year?
Reelected
Okay.
this year.
And then I'm 27. Katie K, you're good for a year. And you were just elected in 2025. So those are all good. We'll just update those couple. Okay.
And we need to find new member.
And a new member. I've put a couple feelers out, but apparently nobody's biting on that worm. So if there are people, and it's a Ludlow position that's open, so anybody from Ludlow can, first they would go and see, write a letter to Lane, and then Lane would instruct them to go to a select board's meeting and just get sort of approved, but nobody's ever not been approved to my knowledge. And then they would come here and we would, hear a little bit about them and then vote to approve them or not. And again, I don't, unless there's multiple people coming, we don't usually have that, so. All right, so reorg is all set. I would take a motion to approve as adjusted.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the committee assignments as we discussed?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Board comments. I'd like to thank Cheryl for her A+ with the auditor. I couldn't do that. Public comments. Did you have anything
Is it
No, okay.
appropriate, we're talking about the budget or another time?
are they all just budget questions? Yeah. Is that fine? Are you good when we get to budget? Yeah, okay. Any other public comments? All right.
Do you want to skip down to the budget? What? Or are you going to you're going to listen to the reports anyway?
Well, I can start it real quick. I'm just confused about the Mount Holly head count, where in last year's report, 5th grade had 13 students. And this year, 6th grade has, I believe, 22. So did the number of students increase by 9?
I think that must be an inaccurate typo from last year's report.
That's what I thought.
The 22 were the 5th graders last year.
But, okay, because last year you were told that part of the reason the budget went up was because a larger than regular class. So that larger than regular class came from Ludlow for graduating.
That group that's the 6th grade class here now.
Right. In other words, last year, one of the discussions was the increase in the budget, ignoring the whole change in the law and everything, was that there was a larger than normal class graduating. And at the time, I thought they were talking about Mount Holly because they were talking about 23 students graduating from 6th grade into high school.
Last year, our 6th grade class was, the combined 5-6 was 23. So we had 14.
14 6th graders last year.
In the report, it says 16.
So we started with that number, and by the time we finished the end of the school year, people move in, people move out, and so at the time we wrote the report, that's the number of students that we had.
I think the main reason that tuition went up last year was because the rates that we were paying went way up. Is that right, Cheryl? Mm-hmm.
Well, that was another point I was confused on.
Was it 23 kids combined from the sixth grades that were graduating that were moving into tuition?
No, in Mount
maybe
Holly's,
between the two.
in Mount Holly's count, it had the fifth grade is 13 and the sixth is 23.
That's
And I
just,
think that should have
just
been
flip,
just the
flipped
opposite.
around.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I was getting confused, because I was trying to figure out how you went from 13 to 22, I think it was.
Yeah.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
no, I apologize for that. That's just a switch.
And I guess if you could clarify how the tuition in high school and middle school are paid between public and private. For some reason, last year, I thought you said that you only paid the state average, no more than that, to any of the schools.
No, only to private and independent. We have to pay announced public school tuition to any place our kids go.
Oh, so any of the public schools that they attend,
Yeah.
we have to pay whatever they come up with as their average,
Correct.
Which tends to
Not
be
as their
higher.
average, as their set tuition
as
rate.
their set tuition.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I was asked is there was an ad in the Chit Chat from Mount St. Joseph's by saying, congratulations, if you come from Mount Holly, you go in Ludlow, you can come here for free. And I'm trying to, so the
Yeah, so
presumption
I
is their
bet-
tuition is
Lower.
lower, or they're willing to accept
Just
the state average.
Yes, that's probably correct. Yeah.
I know at one point, and I'm speaking a couple years ago, their tuition was much lower than any of the state averages or the announced tuition rates. It was, I mean, I want to say it was less than $5,000, their tuition.
You're
No.
going back too far?
Oh, okay. Time has no relevance in Kelly's brain, so maybe it's a lot further than I thought, but it didn't seem like that long ago that that was the number, but.
Yeah, it was like 15, 16 a couple years
Yeah.
ago, so that's a little higher.
Okay, so yeah.
When I was signing 2 years ago, I think it was 17,000 for MSJ and about 8,000 for Christ the King.
That's might have been what I was thinking is Christ the King. Okay.
So somebody goes to a private,
Yeah.
if somebody goes to a private school, like, whatever comes after Christ the King.
MSJ.
And you pay the state average.
If that's what they bill us, they can bill us less, they can't bill us anything.
So then is the parent responsible for the rest?
That falls under not our problem.
No, I'm just
But-
curious.
Yeah.
how it works.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. If they charge more, it would be the parent's responsibility.
Okay.
Or they would get a scholarship or some other thing, but we don't pay that.
Yeah.
That's a,
That's not
that's
ours.
between the parent and the other school. Yeah.
I was just,
And last year, the state average was, I think you said 17,000 something.
It was higher than that last year.
I think it's
18.
It was
it says
18.
18 to 26, it looks like.
Yeah, it's
This year as well.
19,774.
Hmm.
19,774 this year, and next year it's going to be 20,000. I think 286.
That's something we have zero control.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you know how many students are currently that we're paying tuition on? And how many will be next year?
One question.
Next year.
Yeah,
yes.
20,840 is next year's announced tuition rate.
How much is that? I'm sorry.
20,840.
I have a question about the report, like the town report. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. I'm just, it's going to be a question that Cheryl needs to answer. She's already on one question, so I just wanted to give her for a minute. That's all, Jamie.
Yeah, no
Is
problem.
it a Cheryl question?
Well, it's just kind of like talking about the tuition students. So like when you look at, the numbers, I feel like a lot of people, especially with the vote, because I was really trying to sell it, explaining like, take into consideration these things. I'm like, you have to remember there are tuition students, and, yes, it shows like how many kids are in Ludlow and then how many kids are in Mount Holly, but it didn't like specify, like, don't forget there's all these kids that go to 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, like underneath it, like in the town. I almost feel like, they're not everyone's going to read it from front to back to see those numbers. And when people are looking at the budget, they're going, oh, 88 kids or whatever. Like, I can't believe it's that much. They're forgetting about all the tuition students, and it's not on the page for each town, because
Right.
I understand it's not going to Ludlow or Mount Holly, but
I book with me, it's out in my car, but I thought there was a page that had all of the tuitions and where they were going.
I don't think we publish them.
Oh, we don't?
It's on the website if anyone wants to go look for it.
Right, but maybe that's what we do next year is if we can find out, add that in there. I think you're right. That's absolutely a valid point.
I had it on.
because they're right, like our budget, our $10 million includes our tuition students, right?
Right, it's half of
So-
our kids. Ish. I
Right,
mean,
so
right,
so
right,
they're
yeah.
not seeing $10 million for 88, and I'm sorry, I forget how much Mount Holly has off the top of my head, but that's what they're zoning in on, are those two specific numbers, and completely forgetting about the tuition students and the
Right.
cost that it is to send them out. So I don't know if it's like a disclaimer on that one page, because I feel like that's what people are showing me. Like, here's the numbers for K through 6.
Some kids go to like.
I'm not ignoring you, Jamie. I'm actually putting an alarm in my phone for December to do that.
Go to like 10.
And Jamie,
So we went
Cheryl
to-
just said right now we have 139 7 through 12 kids tuition.
Partial.
So add that to your Mount Holly amount and your Ludlow amount, and it's a little more. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it's 100 plus 88 plus 139.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, and I just put it, so in our December meeting next year, I have a note that says, make sure there's a page in the booklet for the tuition rate.
I'll make sure when we do the communication. It's in there too.
Yeah,
well, and then numbers, like, I don't know. I don't know if maybe it would be appropriate, being that like Ludlow Elementary School's kids are going to be going. So like like you do with 6th grade, you have this many kids, 7th grade, you have this many kids. And then, like maybe a little sub chart underneath it to also remember that those kids are accounted for in that town.
no, I agree, absolutely.
And Jamie, the total, if you take everything from pre-K to 12, is 327.
300.
327?
For both districts?
Total LMH. So, all of our kids that are
Okay.
in schools plus all of the kids we tuition.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, both schools, but we are one district.
That's right. Yes, I misspoke. Both schools.
I knew you knew what you meant, but I just wanted to be clear online.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cheryl, is it 327?
What's that?
I was just double checking with Cheryl because I just did that quick.
Oh,
But
I really wasn't listening to the conversation.
I think it's 327 total, but we should double check.
Yeah.
And in addition to the tuition, I mean, we also pay special ed.
At the 20,000.
Right, but last year you said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So it varies for each of the schools. Green Mountain went from 18 to 22,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Springfield School District is 26,400 next year. Rutland Public Schools,
Yes.
22.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking with the booklet, like that one page that shows the grid with the classrooms and the numbers, like we also have to showcase that there are those post-secondary kids that we also have to pay for. and maybe the announced tuition for those public schools that are surrounding us, that they go to, that we farm them out to.
That's a really good idea.
You know, maybe just a nice little cheat sheet that's right in the beginning, because that's like all they're going to look at, it feels like.
You can hear, but Lane kind of said quietly, we should put it in a communication before the revote too, something. So
Yes.
I think that's absolutely a great idea.
But these are great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's, you budgeted for, you said 146,
So they budgeted for,
right? So that's really only 7 more. And yet we're going up 517,000.
part of that has to do with the tuition rate increase. Not just
That's a, yeah, I know.
And it's going up like that year after year. So we had that discussion at the last meeting that I think, what was it, the amount that you paid for Black River in its last year is equal to what you're paying for tuition now.
But I just want to clarify, Lane, what you just said. I heard last time, and maybe I heard it wrong, that if we took the trend line of Black River and compared it to the trend line of the tuition, we were at a meeting point.
Yeah.
So it's not equal to what we were paying 5 years ago. It's the trend, one trend line we can't predict because it closed, and the other trend line is now crossing it.
What I remember, and you probably know better, was the idea that 3.1 million or whatever it was for Black River, we were trying to remind people, or Cheryl pointed out that you got to remember that was from when it closed. That's not the amount it would cost now.
Well, actually, it was when you merged, so that was 2018.
2 years before.
So the cost there would have gone up a bit.
Right.
And so at some point in the future, given the fact that, you know, the cost, if you were running Black River, is going up like this, and the cost of tuitions is going up like this, at some point in the next couple of years, it would be just as cheap to.
Right.
Right.
Right, that's what I heard, is that the
Yeah.
one trend line was going up faster than
Tuition
what
trend
the
line.
old trend line had been going up. And of course, we can't go back and look at our crystal ball, what would have happened, but yeah.
As a joke, you may want to absorb the expedition for school. Because last year you said the tuition was significantly less than, I don't know what it is this year, but it was significantly less than.
No, it's not anymore.
No.
Not anymore. Oh, no.
Well,
Once they got
Got us
approved,
every which way.
they figured out their budget. A suggestion though, if you're going to do the data with the different schools, if it's a separate schedule, it's one thing. If you're going to do it between individual schools, you got to do your reports the same. You guys, each school presents their data differently, which makes life rather interesting trying to compare them.
Would our economic be?
Your write-ups, your way you present your students, how they're coming in. You know, they're not the same. It's not consistent.
We're trying to do that. That is our goal. Deb and I are working towards that. Are you thinking of stuff we've done recently or in the past?
I'd have to go back and look specifically
Sure.
this time, but it's like, it also gets tough when you're trying to define the students you're showing. I know what you're trying to say is this is our projection of students that we have coming into this school year. And that's not necessarily what's going to show up all the time.
Yeah, it's hard.
Or what's going to be there at the end. I understand that. But it's that, and also how you present, you know, people that are split between the schools.
Teacher wise, you mean?
You know, there's like the phys ed or one thing it's this and there's a little note, the other one there's an asterisk that says it's down here, and I'm going more on last year's, and I didn't get that focused on it this year because I already figured it out. But it takes work to figure it out. And if you're going to put in how many of our students are in, you know, middle and high school, life gets even more interesting because now you're wanting to, you know, combine it somewhere.
It's great feedback for us as we think about writing our reports for next year. And so Greg and I can make sure that we talk about that in our actual narrative on our reports.
I'll admit to not having completely read the special ed, so, but it's tough pulling special ed data out too, because it's spread over a number of different reports. Even though on the budget section, it's, it's all right there, but it's, I don't know if you want to plan to do that or not. That's, that wasn't part of your discussion. I'm just saying it's tough to find.
It was a little confusing because, our district doesn't provide the special ed. We pay the supervisory union to do it. So it shows up as as an assessment. And so that, again, the special ed teachers aren't working for our board. Am I saying that right?
They're not in your budget. You pay them assessment.
Yeah, right. We're paying you to pay them.
Right. And that's because when numbers change, we want to be able to have the flexibility to save money essentially and move people where we have the numbers. So. And
then I think you said 3 years or 2, you, under a new premise, you're going to be able to reevaluate special ed. The individual students get reevaluated every 3 years.
That's hoping,
last year you were hoping that the number of, I'm going to call it identified special ed, would decrease, even though they still may need tutoring or something along those lines.
So there was a new, was it 3 summers ago, new special ed rules came out, and the premise is to help kids differently, to reduce numbers, to make them more in line with averages. And kids do get reevaluated every 3 years. For a bazillion, I've been a special ed teacher a really long time, 30 years. And kids get reevaluated every 3 years. So that piece isn't new, but how we approach and look at evaluating kids is slightly different. And so that hope is to meet kids where they are and reduce special ed costs that way. Yes. Any other?
No,
I did enough.
You did enough.
No, and obviously that's an issue that the board has been concerned about and discussing, and we've asked Lane to come back to us and report in part on what he and the principals and the teachers are doing and will be doing in order to meet the needs of kids who are struggling, if possible, without having them be classified. If they don't need to be classified as special ed and we can help them anyway, right? Then that's the way to do it. But that's right.
I mean, part of it is also the kids on the spectrum. The spectrum has gotten rather large from 3,000 years ago when I went to school.
Other public comments. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question.
Dave, do you want to just speak? I guess there's 2 things. So the Vermont Rural School Community Alliance was what we voted that we would participate in because it seems like their mission aligns with our mission to reduce costs. And Dave has been diligently responding, sending out information. And so to that end, I can't keep up with it. I appreciate that he is, and that's super great. I was going to suggest that maybe we make a small committee of 1 or 2 people, and I'm hoping Dave would be at least one of those people because he seems passionate about it. To sort of navigate that. I don't see it as a long-term committee because I think once the legislator time is over, that will cease as well. And then maybe it was also looked at the TRSU level, and they were sort of in agreement that it would be nice if we had people who were passionate about it, that they maybe could Zoom into our meeting or attend on the, now that you're on the official ballot, just as an update and a summary of what's going on, and sort of be, do a little mini committee report.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, there hasn't been a meeting since we joined. And so, right, no, and so, but every day there are half a dozen or more emails.
So you're not sending them all out?
And I'm not sending them all out. No. Many of the emails are about who's going to join and who's already joined, and which district this person is from, and and they're not. But I've been forwarding the ones that relate to the policy debate.
Right.
And I guess the question is whether people want to continue getting those emails, whether you want me at our monthly meeting to give a short summary of what they've done. I mean, if you see that it's a forward that I'm sending to you, you shouldn't feel obliged like you have to read it. I'm not asking you a question. I'm just providing, it's mostly about the debate that's going on in the legislature and in the press about what changes ought to happen. And I can say that I've seen very few people arguing against putting a minimum size on classes, right? Both Democrats and Republicans and all the associations, I haven't seen any of them oppose having a limit of a minimum class size of 15 for the younger kids. And I think it's 25 for people draw the line, whether it's middle school. Some people put fifth and sixth graders into that group.
Is it 25 or 18?
25.
25.
We're going to talk about that. In my
Yeah,
report.
that's.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean,
I'll sit in my room for a minute.
Many people seem to feel like we should consolidate the number of school districts. There was a report from another group that just came out, I sent out yesterday, that said, no, don't consolidate the school districts, consolidate the supervisory unions. So you have one supervisory union basically for each technical school. Okay, so you go to having 17, I think it was the number, instead of 52, so I think roughly something like that. And part of that proposal would also move much decision-making from individual boards to the supervisory union. So there would still be a board, but they would basically have to negotiate with the supervisory union on your budget. And as I understand, the budget would be paid by everybody they look at the per pupil cost in the supervisory union, and that would set the taxes rather than district by district. And so the people in the supervisory union seems to be unlikely to want to have one district with significantly higher costs per student than others. One other, if you don't mind me going on, one other feature of that one is that the whole school choice issue. If we consolidate districts the way the governor wants to, every district would have a high school, right? And so you wouldn't have a distinction between people who live in a district without a high school who could choose and people who live in a district that has one. And they're all trying to figure out, if you did that, what would you do with choice, right? And that's a major debate, because most Democrats fear that if you have too much choice, money that would otherwise go to the public schools will go to the private schools instead. One advantage of the proposal that just came out is that by keeping the district as an entity, even if it has less responsibilities than it did before, the people in that district would still have choice, right? And people in the rest of the supervisory union might not. In Mount Holly, of course, particularly an issue. just because Mill River is closer than Green Mountain. In addition to the people who are choosing Black River or one of the other independent schools, you probably know better, Craig, but the majority of the Mount Holly kids seem to go to between the two, go to Mill River rather than to Green Mountain because it's a lot closer.
By far, there's only usually, Cheryl will have the exact numbers, but a couple kids go to GM.
Mhm.
And then most of them go to Mill River, but a handful go to Long Trail. And then you've got lots of little bits and pieces, Floodbrook, Woodstock, Springfield.
Also, the other thought of that is we sit on the county line, right? So
Yeah.
the Mount Holly kids are in Rutland, Windsor, whereas the Ludlow kids are in Rutland and Windsor, not Rutland, Windsor. I typed Rutland, Windsor Supervisory Union earlier today. So that would look weird for us and pose a problem in that scenario.
Yeah, and it might even raise the question of which way, would Mount Holly rather be in a Springfield district, right, or in a Rutland County district?
And would we get a say in that?
Right, and how will that decision be made? And if people wanted that, would we do it by lobbying the legislature, or would the AOE have the discretion? I don't know.
I can tell you based on what the governor said.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe moving. Again, this is just what I've been reading and forwarding, but Lane, of course, has a lot more.
Yeah, a lot of the research piece here. So to go back a couple of steps, the plan calls for concentrating the power with the governor, the Secretary of Education, and a minor amount into the 5 school boards. Each of those 5 school boards would have 5 members, and it's those 5 members that would vote on the budget for the entire district. It is not the people that are paying the taxes. And so that's a concern kind of right off the bat. The legislature, not the legislature, the governor's office, the folks that were doing the research, one of the things that they were connecting with is who has the power to make decisions and move districts around. And the law says that it is the legislature. And so, in terms of choosing where you go, they could very well just say, no, this is what you're stuck with. But there's a lot of parts and pieces about this, which are, I think there may be nothing sinister about it, and it probably isn't, but it leads to questions that are worth asking. The governor's original proposal would have expanded the amount of money that was going to private schools. The legislature, after seeing it, stepped up and through part of its negotiations is saying, that's one thing that we will never, stand for. And so they've kind of had that discussion. But a couple of pieces, if we want to move into the report, or if we want to.
Can I just clarify, because you just said it, and I don't want to lose my thought. The 5 board members for, say,
for one of the 5 districts.
So there would be 25 board members statewide who would decide all of the budgets in the state, and the voters would have 0 say except to elect or not elect those particular board members. Seems like
and how easy in a nearly 2,000 square mile school district is it going to be for people to show up at the board meetings to express their concerns?
Or have representation.
Right.
Well, no, and if a board has 50-something schools, right?
58,
and okay, then obviously the board members aren't going to know much about each of the schools, or probably will have never seen most of them, and probably never met most of the principals.
Because the focus isn't on educating kids, the focus is on controlling costs. There has never been a discussion as a part of this that came out of the governor's office, other than some political speak about how this was going to improve education for kids with something to back it up. Oh, this should, oh yeah, you're going to have better health care and you're going to pay less. It was that kind of discussion. But anyway, it's I commend them for taking a stab at it and getting people talking, because that needs to happen. The superintendent's report, a lot of it, there is an analysis, partial analysis of the governor's plan. And so there's a lot of data in there, but there's a couple pieces I think it's important to talk about here just because, things are being recorded.
I was going to say, if we're moving on to your report, I just wanted to clarify my last thought about the Rural Community Alliance.
Yeah.
Are we all in agreement, and should we vote on forming a committee and electing a representative maybe? Then also asking that representative to summarize at the TRSU as well? That seems, yes, Jamie, Julie? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure, because I last time we didn't really specify, and then I think when we all started getting emails, people were like, whoa, that's a lot.
And I think Adrian at the TRSU, that was her preference rather than, I guess what I heard was that she wanted, or she thought it was most efficient for both districts to decide independently if they wanted to join this rural schools group. We already have, obviously, but then to report at TRSU what the latest was.
Right. Perfect. So,
should I stop forwarding the?
I think it's fine to forward them. I can't sort through them in like real time.
Right.
So I don't want that to stop you from forwarding them, but I would also love to hear a summary like you just did. I think was really wonderful. Because I can't keep up with them all, and I appreciate that you are, because wow, there's a lot. And if that's only half of
right.
Okay. So yeah.
Okay, I'll try to have a more organized summary next time.
That's okay.
There's one other thing I should mention: the issue of closing schools. Right now, the only way to close Ludlow or Mount Holly is for the town to vote to close their own school, right? Under the governor's plan, basically the 5 board members could decide to close schools. And under almost any of the plans, if you consolidate districts, the district would have the ability to close schools. And there would, of course, people in Springfield say, well, why should we pay for these tiny little schools, that cost extra money? If we close them, then we'll all save some money. And one of the things that this group is they had a bill that's been introduced to have an elaborate process that would have to be followed before a school could be closed.
So that's why they introduced that into legislation.
Right.
Yeah, because the legislature has control too, they can vote. So not much you can do.
Maybe the last thing, we had talked briefly about the idea of inviting our senators and our assembly member to come to a meeting. Do you think to me, it would be, I'd like to see as many of them as would be willing to come next month, at our regular meeting.
They were invited and they were coming tonight.
You mean Becca, Bale, and Peter Law?
No.
Kevin Winter was supposed to be here, and last I talked to Maria, she reached out to several, I don't know which ones, and then nobody got back to her except for Kevin, and he was supposed to be here, but he isn't at the moment.
He's the one, he only represents Ludlow, Mount Holly, and Shrewsbury, whereas the others have big districts, of which we're small potatoes. But I would think that Kevin ought to be willing to come.
Do we need to do a motion to set up the committee?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just want to keep us on our toes here.
I'll move to set up the committee with Dave as the chair.
And the mission of that committee, the task or charge of that committee would be to represent us in the Vermont Rural School Community Alliance, and provide information as available and summarize that information at both the Ludlow-Mount Holly monthly meetings as well as the TRSU as appropriate.
Okay, I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And if anybody else wants to, partake in that and add to your summaries, we are all available to do that. You're just going to be the lead person on it, right? Seems good? All right, thank you.
Yeah. No, I think what I'll try to do is draft a summary and send it to Lane in advance, for him to correct anything I've done wrong.
Well, your information may be more up to date than mine is because the legislature changes every day.
Yeah, right, or add something that I missed that ought to go in there too.
And I don't want to belabor this conversation, but it keeps running through my head. When we were joining our districts a few years ago, the tax rate used to be completely different, the school tax rate. And then when we joined districts, we had to have one school tax rate. So if we were in a district with many other towns, would that still be the case? And what would that look like for us? I don't know that we would be it would come out in our favor or not. I
think the intent is that it'd be the same, whether it's going to be in our favor or not.
Right.
That's going to have to come out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Again, my guess is since we're a slightly higher than average spending district, right? To me, it's likely our taxes would go down a little bit.
Because you're going to cut the budget.
Yeah. Well, no, because our budget for pupil spending would be for the whole district, not just for us.
But we're going to pick up every other school special ed and all. I don't know how it would play out, but it seems a little bit scary to me.
Right. A lot scary.
Yeah. And I just pulled up the official Vermont tax rates for towns. And if you start looking at, some of the ones around us, there's, obviously higher ones and lower ones. And I don't know how all that would pan out because the formula is going to they're going to, start pulling weird things out of a hat and creating a formula out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the CLA was,
foundation budget, yeah, Lane's right. If they go to that would be a base tax rate, and then anything above that would be on the town. But my understanding is they're looking at a cap for that as well.
But how does that solve an equity problem? Certainly some towns are just going to be able to naturally spend more on their schools and others based on socioeconomics. That really seems unfair.
It seems like we're going backwards and not forwards. Yeah.
Well, and then some people are going to have to drive very far to go to school. And then you're going to have people moving because they don't want to live in a town where they have to drive 45 minutes to go to school. And
Well, that will bring town transportation.
yeah.
So they're not going to get their kids to school.
Yeah.
And then they got DCF taking their kids to school.
There seems to be a lot of holes.
Yeah, this whole thing to me, reading all of the different plans and, revisions and sort of counter proposals. My conclusion is that it's all very regressive for people who live in rural communities, because it seems to me in any option that I've seen, the solutions that work in Washington County, Chittenden County, really don't fit a district or a region, quite frankly, like ours, with smaller populations from town to town, smaller tax base to draw from. The economics of this part of the state are radically different from like South Burlington. And it's a little bit frustrating that it feels like the solutions aren't really making good distinctions to account for the, diversity in the region.
yeah, I think that's right. And I encourage anyone who hasn't done it yet to respond to the survey that came from the legislature. Because, who knows? It's not a random sample of people who respond, but the more of us who raise those issues, have if it helps, I'll re-forward that link.
And that's also the importance of this Rural School Community Alliance, I think, is to elevate these issues.
Right. Absolutely. All right, so, unless there's other discussion, Lane, want to do your superintendent's report?
Thank you, Gloria. Like I said, I'll talk a little bit about the governor's plan because that's in the written report. And I do have the special education data that was available that I can present as well as part of the one that's specific to this board. But aside from all the other things that I think we've talked about in terms of the governor's plan, one of the things that it was resting upon was that it's research-based. And so I spent a little time, and again, I can't check out each of the 500 research articles that they refer to. But Picus and Ogden, what they did was it was a meta study. They didn't do any research themselves. They just took a look at what the common conclusions of research about certain subjects was, and that's what they kind of concluded in terms of the recommendations to the state of Vermont. And there are two, I think, that are very particular, and that's the consolidation studies, bringing districts together, and then the class size. The consolidation studies, the research that was done was in cities and in highly populated suburbs. So, Boston as a city has 952 students per square mile. A typical suburb, especially on the East Coast, has about 543 students per square mile. So this is the research base that they're drawing from. Compare it to Vermont that has 9 per square mile. And so, you got to talk a little bit about how, when you have kids that are spread out that much, how are you going to bring that together into a properly functioning district? Whereas, I've had the Marblehead discussion with folks, you got 3,000 kids in Marblehead. My district was 4.5 square miles. So if you got little districts like that in the suburbs of Boston, you could put 12, 15 districts together and it'd still be a third of the size of ours as it is now. And so there's that piece of the study. The other piece of the study, which had to do with class size, most of the ones, and I didn't look at all of them, I did a quick sampling across. Most of them were from like 1993-ish or before, so they were before ed reform. And so when they're starting to talk about, 25 kids in a high school and, 15 kids in an elementary classroom, life was easier back then. Right now, what we're expected to teach is more complex, it's broader, and it's deeper. The other thing that's happened in turning time between when those research studies were done was in those days, if we had a violent kid that was in class, regardless of the reason, the administration would just expel them. They didn't have to deal with them. Now, we have to deal with every kid, regardless of the problems, and they've even kind of outlawed our ability to even suspend students. And so when you have those changes that are happening since that research was done, there's a reason that class sizes are smaller, because it's the only way to manage all the things that they put on everybody's plate since then. The other piece about the class sizes is this idea that they also did those studies in areas with larger schools. If I've got 1,500 elementary kids in a school, I'm benefiting from the economy of scale, so I have tons of resources to use at them just because of my size that a school like this doesn't have. And so trying to be able to do that comparison, it's just, if that's the research that they're trying to base stuff on, it's kind of shaky. And the last piece I'll say about it was the high school, the 25. There was no research at the middle and high school level about class sizes. And what Ogden and Picus said in their report, pretty much an exact quote, was there's no research out there, so we're going to look at what the average class sizes were, and we're going to call that best practice. If that's what people are choosing on, that must be what's best. As opposed to the fact that, no, people usually choose on what the budget is going to be and has nothing to do with the best for education. So as far as the report is concerned, they did a lot of good work, but they didn't go through and qualify the research studies that they looked at. They didn't go through, most people that do a meta study, they'll look at each piece of research and they'll say, the conclusions are valid and the methodology is valid. They didn't do that either. So they weren't picking and choosing, but they don't know how good the research was or what each piece encompassed, especially in sizes of schools and things. So the special education data, so this is one of the things that was brought up. I was able to pull some numbers, which I think will be fun to talk about, because there's some really good stuff in there, and there's some stuff that needs to be worked on. One of the things I do want to point out, though, as we look at this, is that the state doesn't really disaggregate data. So it's really hard to say, okay, this is Ludlow Elementary School. This is what's happening there. We did have poor Donna in the office there going through and trying to figure out that individual school data. She just wrapped that up tonight. So the next time we meet, we'll talk about the individual schools. So a lot of this is either district data, like all of TRSU, or LMUU school district. So let's see if I can get this thing going. We'll talk a little bit. And we'll start out general, and this is a good place if folks have questions. So this is just looking at the elementary students across the district from K to 6. And what it is looking at is the percentage of those students in those grades that are on an IEP by year. And so this started off, this first year here was about 3-4 years ago. I should have put the dates on there. So when you go back there, what you can say is in TRSU, in the elementary grades, if you add up all the elementary kids, about 28.25% of them are on an IEP, which is an incredible number. It's more than a quarter of the kids are on an IEP that year. And so you can see that number, it dropped down here, it's come up, but the overall trend line is here. So it's going up every year that goes by. So we're getting more and more kids on IEPs. Expenses are going to go up. And then the question becomes, well, is that justified? Which we'll see in a couple of these slides. Now that line is, because of the scaling, looks steeper than it actually is. Every year that goes by, another 0.5% of all the kids in the elementary grades are going on an IEP based upon the trend line. Does that make a little bit of sense?
It's interesting. It seems like it drops so dramatically that one year.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was while we were all at home and
The COVID years.
assessing kids.
Yeah, you had quirky things that are going on.
Yeah.
This one is, for me, is kind of the most important because it tells a partial story, which might be messed up because of what you brought up a little while ago, which was they changed the threshold for receiving special education services. So what this is I took a 3-year average of each grade in terms of the percentage of kids that were on an IEP at each grade. So like this one, this is, grade 4, grade 5-ish. About 20% of the kids in grade 4 on average are on an IEP based on this data. And you see something strange here. Right? In the early grades, preschool, kindergarten, there's not a lot of students that are on IEPs, but as time goes on, what's happening? More and more kids are coming on IEPs. That doesn't make any sense if you're providing them with services. Because if you're providing them with effective services, you would expect things to be the opposite. Because students with speech issues are typically identified in pre-K and kindergarten, so you should have a high number there. And then students with academic problems are typically identified in grades 1 and 2. There are some that can be identified out here, but it's rare. Some students have a disability, but they've learned strategies to compensate for it. But what happens is at some point in time, as the work that they're doing gets harder and harder through the grades, they hit a point of no return, and then they need the services.
I think I agree with you on most of that, Lane. I think the speech changes. The criteria for speech it's easy, and then it gets really hard. But also the shift between like 3rd, 4th grade, where we go from, sort of that concrete learning to that more abstract learning, I think is a huge time where I've noticed kids hit, and that kind of corresponds with your graph.
Well, and there's also this piece, and this might be anecdotal, but where it's in the younger grades, it's like, oh, they're a baby, they'll catch up, and then you get to a certain grade and you're like, they're not catching up.
Yeah.
there's a problem with that, and the points are good. One of the reasons for the bloat up here, and I don't know, I'm not a special education person per se. It could be because when they changed the threshold, it allowed more kids. And so kids that, down here in their earlier grades couldn't get on an IEP because the threshold was here. When the threshold came down, that might be the reason for it. But what you'd like to see is you want to be identifying the kids as early as possible, because it's a heck of a lot easier to remediate them and fix the problem here than finding out when the kid's in 10th or 11th grade and then trying to fix a problem they've had all their life that's caused them to kind of be behind their whole education. And so just some interesting data there. And you can see what the little trend line there is. Yeah, it's going up as we go through the grades.
It's interesting though to see that like after 10th, it like plummets. It's probably because those kids that really needed those services and are struggling probably just quit, right?
That's exactly right. That's, if we look at our graduation rates, our 4 and our 6 year graduation rates out of the high schools, and this is true across Vermont, and you're going to see that our special education department is actually doing a much better job than Vermont. When we get a couple more slides down the road. But yeah, there are a lot of students that drop out.
That's also a skewed number though. And I don't want to be like the special ed geek, but kids have to drop out at some point sometimes to get adult ed services. And so those kids might look like they've dropped out, but they're actually still going to school and getting a GED. They're just doing it in a non-traditional way. Yeah. And also our graduation rate when we had a high school was really pretty darn high. I don't currently know what it is for our specific kids, but that might be an interesting thing to find out as well. I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll switch in just a second. Disability types by percentage in our IEP population. The largest one, 33.5% of them are on basically an academic IEP, right? Specific learning disabilities. The next largest group here is students with developmental delay. In other words, these are students, usually they seem to associate back to problems during pregnancy. But these are students that, they walk a year later than everyone else. They start talking, a year or two later than everyone else. They develop skills that are milestones later than most students. Next category is other health impairments. So this is primarily your ADHD students. Then we've got emotional disturbance, which is one that's been growing an awful lot. These are the students that, we talk about, there's violence, especially at the elementary levels.
What's the population here, Wayne? Is this TRSU again?
This is across TRSU, but just K to 6 students that we're looking at as a total. This is your autism. That's high. 8% of the elementary students in the district, the whole TRSU in grades K to 6 are on an IEP for being on the spectrum.
I think that'd be higher, honestly.
What's typical?
So OSSD was a little bit larger than here. And we had 15 students total in the district. And so if you're talking 10% of about 300 kids, you're talking 30-ish, So it's a lot of students. And then this is all the other kind of scattered pieces. So the academic, if this is the highest, we should be able to see that. I don't know how it goes back, but we should be able to see that being identified, usually in grades 1 and 2 when we're not. And so, this is giving us a little bit of direction, places where we can look at things and try to see where we might make things better.
Where would speech and hearing show up on that?
Other health impairments.
Okay, so it's quite a small number.
It's this one here. How do you make this thing shrink? What's that? There you go. So about 17%.
So isn't developmentally delayed? That's only up to like grade 2 or 3. It's the younger kids. It doesn't go all the way to 6.
Yeah.
Pre-K.
Yeah. But again, there's a huge percentage of kids that could be identified very early if we've got the structure to do it, and hopefully start channeling the resources to them to get them to develop the strategies internalized so that they can do it for themselves and not always have to rely on somebody. One of the problems with special education in Vermont in general, not in every place, is the idea that they're supporting the students, but because the students aren't learning how to support themselves when the services are pulled away, they fail. So, it's kind of changing that mentality. So this is performance. This is the percentage of the student population that is above proficiency. So this is a weighted average of every student in the district. And so the blue is the performance of TRSU. The orange is the state. And so we've got TRSU versus the state in terms of hitting proficiency in English on the English state test. And you can see something. We're a little bit lower than the state, but you can see the two lines coming together as time is going on. We're getting to the point where we're going to surpass the state probably next year if things keep going. And so we want to compare that, however, to the special education population, because this is the population as a whole. And kind of remember that blue line, it's at about that much of an angle. Because one of the things we're responsible for is trying to close the achievement gap. Now here's the blue line, and this is just looking at the special education students across the district. So the special education students, every year that goes by, more of them are hitting proficiency than our general ed students. General ed students, right, they're still hitting proficiency at a higher and higher rates as year goes by, but the special education students, because of the work of our special educators, are getting to catch up.
Is this still K-6? So it's third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade?
This is the entire district.
Okay.
Every special ed student.
So
Yeah.
it's 3 through 9.
Yes, that take the exams. And the reason being is because, like I said, we've got to disaggregate it because the state doesn't do it when we're looking at the data numbers. And Donna did that work over the last week, and I'll have it next time.
Yeah. So could part of the reason for that be that we classify more of our kids as special ed than the rest of the state does? So so we have kids who are meeting the goal, who in other districts might not be included in special ed.
Assuming that because we're all working with the same thresholds the kids have to pass to receive services.
And somehow we're doing more, we're classifying more than the rest of the state is.
We just have them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question. Is it something that we're doing, right? Or is it who lands in our lap? Or some combination of the two.
The other story that piece of data that we just looked at, right, the increase, and this might be telling, is that we're not taking the kids off the IEPs when they should come off, right? So they're still getting services and help long after they should be independent. I'm not sure if that's the case, but that is a possible story that data tells. So it's a good point. So I don't think it's so much about letting them on. I think it might be more about taking them off when it's appropriate to do so.
So assessing sooner than that 3-year period?
Not being afraid to tell a parent your kid's okay without special education services. And standing your ground when the parent understandably gets a little bit upset and nervous. And that's true across most districts, no matter where you go in the country.
Sorry, Lane, just one, the orange
State.
bars and trend line, when you say state average, is that the same state average as the whole population on the previous one, or IEP IEP students?
So this one is just looking at special education students.
Okay.
Same grades for the state.
State and TRSU.
Yeah, and then the blue is TRSU. And so, that's a pretty good increase, and that's English. And then if we look at the math, so you see something interesting going on here. In this case, we're actually the white line, but we're still the blue. And so we're beating the state in terms of our general population at every data point along the way. We're not separating from the state at all. The state's improving a little bit, and we're improving at the same amount. So, that trend line stays the same. We'll always be beating the state average, the way that it's going. And then if we look at the math IEP students, It's not as steep, it's not as extreme as the other one, but we're still closing the achievement gap, right? And it's kind of funny, we're beating the state almost by double digits on some of those. So again, the services that are being provided are having an impact. Science, general population. This one's actually funny. When I was looking in the more granular data, right, here is the district, right? We're going up at a really, really steep pace. This is where we surpassed the state. This was carried primarily by the high school students. The elementary students were doing okay, but their science scores weren't really improving. But the high school student scores have been growing by leaps and bounds at Green Mountain.
We test science at 8,
5, 8, and 11.
5, 8.
And then special education proficiency in science. This is one, we're still beating the pants off the state, but we're both going down, and we're going down a little bit sharper. Could be a lot of reasons for that. A lot of districts, especially like at the elementary level, they don't put a lot of time into science. They spend the money on trying to make sure their ELA and their math scores are high. That's it, unless there's questions. But I'll have disaggregated data for the individual schools next time around.
That's good. Can you either send it to us or post it or one way or another?
Why is that? Why is science not as important as math?
Because when in 93-ish to 96, when No Child Left Behind came out, the focus was ELA and math. And the requirements were incredibly strict. In 7 years, 100% of your students have to be proficient in math, have to be proficient in ELA. And if you don't do that, for 2 years, you have to tuition kids out who want to go. That was the backdoor voucher that they built into it. Or if it goes on for 4 or 5 years, then the state can come in and take over your school and fire everybody and start from scratch. Massachusetts has done that 4 or 5 times. Vermont somehow gets these low scores as a state every year, and that's never happened. And it's not good. Usually what's happened in every case is when the state takes over, they usually get the education college to manage things. They've always performed at half of what they were performing before. Just doesn't work. So, good questions.
That was informative. Thank you. Do you have a question, Dave?
Yeah, so back in September, you gave us the enrollment, and it included the IEP by grade. And it was curious that the PK4, at Ludlow, there were 5 students. All 5 of them were on IEPs. Mm-hmm. And there were 7 6th graders, and all 7 of them on IEPs, right? And so when you have numbers like that, and in total it was about 40%. And when you have numbers like that, it sort of makes you wonder, was there something about the decision-making, you're having trouble with a class, and so the teacher sort of pushes, says, all right, they all need IEPs.
Well, yeah, it's under state and federal law, it's not supposed to work that way.
Yeah, no, but there's a lot, in the end, I think you have quite a bit of discretion when you obviously don't do it as a group, right? But it's just an odd statistic, and that the percentage is that high, and that it's was lumped in particular grades.
I don't think it's anything we're doing. I think it's just.
Usually, especially the younger grades, the prevalence of speech and language issues in students has been growing here. And my guess is, I haven't looked, but my guess is that's probably where the disability is in most of those grades. And a lot of that is just the inability of modern parents to actually be able to sit and talk with their kids and spend time with them and read a book to them. That's where a lot of that comes from.
Putting them on a screen.
So on a screen.
It could be too also that the kids who come to the pre-K program are the ones whose parents know that they need help.
Yeah, that's
well, and
that is
so
very,
they're here for
very
child find, and we're here in the district, and people are seeing it. So,
right.
Julie's hand.
Julie,
I really appreciated that presentation. I hadn't seen anything like that in my time here on the board. So, given the students we're serving under our special education programs, I really appreciate seeing that data. So I would appreciate it if we saw that sort of periodically. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is just normal stuff that most, not necessarily in Vermont, but in when I was in Massachusetts, you just did this every year. It was the data that was out there. You shared it with the community. You talked about it with the boards because that's how you set your goals. And so, yeah, you'll see this yearly, if not more frequently.
Yep, thank you.
Can you send me what you were looking at? I probably have it, but if it's at the top of my email, I'll remember to look at it.
No, we got it back. Oh, I'll send it. When we got it back in September.
Thank you. All right, the principal's report.
Okay. All right, so we're both going to talk about handful of things.
Did I jump too fast?
We're both going to talk about enrollment and attendance, student-led conferences. There's some differences between our presentations too. So actually today we had the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, and they did a really amazing program for the whole school. It was a trio, so violin, viola, and cello, and the whole theme was the connections between music and mathematics. And it's really dynamic, really engaging. The kids were very much engaged, and toward the end of their performance, the student questions were just really excellent, really very curious, and very much it's just a great combination of being enjoyable. Deb has invited us at the end of April to be part of a program called Sweethearts and Heroes. It's a program we did, I want to say about 8 years ago. So it's a great time. None of the kids that are here now will have done it before. And it's led by a couple of guys who are really good at relaying their own story and their own experience and helping kids to think about how kindness is really important and how to treat people with respect and dignity. Student-led conferences, if you want to jump to the next slide, Deb. So starting at the top, that number actually, it includes all 14 of the preschoolers. So that includes 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And that's new this year. So most of the kids were 4-year-olds. So, but I think it's a great thing that Christy's trying to do to try to even start with the 3-year-olds. So I expect that number will just keep growing. And kindergarten, 90%, and then 100%, all the rest of the way up. So that first number kind of brings our school total in at 90, but it's really much higher. And I was able to be in conferences at every grade level, and I was just so impressed. It is amazing how every year, as kids are practicing, kind of they select their own work. They think about what work was important in terms of my journey through my own education, and what documents are really important to show both my successes and my challenge areas. And they start in the younger grades really mostly with paper and pencil type stuff. But as they get into even some of our first and second graders are doing some digital presentations, but definitely by 3rd and 4th grade, it's Google Slides, and kids are talking about their academic growth in the core disciplines, also in the essential arts, their social and emotional learning, and they're setting goals, and they're really when you're not meeting those targets, they're thinking about what can I do next time to try to make that goal or set a new one that's higher. So I'm just seeing a lot of value in the student-led conferences. And for folks who aren't as familiar, we do, for any family that would like both a student-led conference and a traditional, we will offer both. Not that many people are asking for the traditional because people are getting a lot more comfortable talking with their kids together with the teacher. I know when I was a kid, it felt like even if you went, the adults were kind of talking about you like you weren't even there. And now it's just like, things can be out on the table, and it's like even the things that are hard are okay to talk about. That's how we learn. I did my attendance data a little different than Deb, which goes to your point, but I think they're both kind of a nice way to see it. I did it by year.
I did it by year last time. I did it by year last time.
And I did it by grade, and then she flipped it, so you can see it both, but just different ones. But
Attendance at student-led conference.
no, this is just.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and actually, if anybody has questions about student-led conferences, maybe before I jump into this, or I could take questions at the end, whatever you guys prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, 94%. It's a good rate, and
Remember after this week, who knows?
there's been a lot of illness. But this is year to date for the 24-25 school year, and within that category, I didn't put that on the slide, but only 0.7, so not even 1% of the absences are unexcused. So excused absences include legitimate illness, maybe a car broke down, serious transportation issues. So, really, I'm pleased with the.
So it went way down with COVID and now it's back where it was
you can see
before.
that too.
One sentence summary.
Yeah, that's our hypothesis. And then just updated our current enrollment in the left column, being the student. And right, that's still our projections for next year. I didn't really try to adjust those. We'll know more about next year's projections if they're changing up or down as we get into preschool and kindergarten registration. That's the one.
Right. So very similar, we had the VSO today. Again, focused on how math and music are integrated, and the kids loved the assembly and asked phenomenal questions. Tomorrow we have Plymouth State University Tigers coming in to do an assembly on wellness. And then upcoming in April, we have Sweethearts and Heroes coming. This is a program that Benson Chevrolet sponsors for us, and they partner with local Chevy dealers and bring this to schools. And the message is so important. We have Rick and Tom coming. Tom is a former professional wrestler, and Rick is a disabled veteran who was burned and lost limbs and nose and an ear and arm. And he talks about how he really started with Sweethearts and Heroes. We'll send information out to families so families have an idea of what he looks like in advance. And he's written a book about his dog Amos, and his dog Amos was his service dog and helped him do many things. And I read the story and I started to cry. So it's a wonderful story, but I think the kids will certainly enjoy it. And we've also invited Cavendish to join us for the day, and we'll work on a schedule where we'll have classrooms and special areas available, and we'll feed kids lunch and do recess. So it'll be a whole day event for us. After the assemblies in the afternoon, as I said, Rick will read his story to small groups of kids, and Tom will work with older students in doing restorative circles and the importance of circle work within our schools and our communities. As you know, we're working on our SIP goals, and a couple of the things that we're doing to work on our SIP goals is we have an IXL, which is an online math platform for math learning, and we're doing monthly challenges. So we did individual challenges up until this month, and this month is March Math Madness, and classes are competing throughout the month of March to see which class answers the most questions correctly. And kids are really excited about that. In addition to that, we have a math scavenger hunt going on in our building. So we have maps and facts and different math problems at different grade levels throughout the building. And kids are finding math problems, solving the problem, and bringing them their answers and checking to see if their answers are right. And you're getting a small token prize for that. We're also, at conferences, we handed out parent letters about ideas of things that parents can do at home to support students' continued growth as readers. And we also have bingo boards that went along with that and different activities that families can do at home, reading to their child, having their child read to them, having a child pull out so many nouns, so many verbs in a story, reading a poem and memorizing a poem and then recording themselves. So a variety of different activities that families can help kids do at home to really support that reading. And then, of course, we continue to have our win blocks or intervention blocks in both math and reading, and our data teams continue to meet. And we look at student work, and we make adjustments into interventions and supports during those blocks of time. We've had some staffing changes. We have our 5th and 6th grade teacher who has resigned her position effective this Friday. So we're working to figure out how to finish out the year for our 5th and 6th graders. We have a plan in place, and fingers crossed, transition will go smoothly for those students. As Craig said, we just finished up student-led conferences. Again, it's always so much fun to watch our students talk about their learning and their work, and not only through student-led conferences, but I have a revolving door of kids coming into my office or finding me in the hallway sharing, look at what I did, look at what I learned, look how many more words I could read this month than I did last month. And they're just so excited about it, and that's fun to see. Our enrollment data, current enrollment is at 81. Our projected is 83. Know that in the 81 and the 83, that does include 3 students in the intensive needs program that is housed at Ludlow Elementary School, and those students push in as they are ready and able in its first short amount of time into classrooms. Our student-led conferences, of course, our parents are in and out of our building on a pretty regular basis. Our pre-K families are dropping off every morning at 8 o'clock, so they're always in the classroom. This go round, you can see the percentage, and our overall participation rate was 74% this year, or this go round. It was a little bit higher in the fall. We also had a lot of kids who in that window frame got sick and left and then didn't come back for conferences. And teachers have did it in many ways. Even if kids couldn't come in, some parents Zoomed in with their student from home. Some teachers had phone conferences and interacted in that manner with the students this go around.
So are those numbers reflected in your percentages?
Yes. Yeah. And then I did attendance. This is just year to date for our school. There's some anomalies, and we have some chronic absenteeism and some chronic unexcused absences more than we would like. So we're working with those families, and in some cases, working with DCF, because after 20 days of unexcused absences, it becomes educational neglect. That being said, in my 20+ years as a building principal, I've not seen them take action. So we report it, it's on their radar, and that's kind of where it lands. So that's all we have.
Good sixth grade.
What's that?
You have a good sixth grade. They all come.
All right, any questions for Deborah Craig?
Is it odd for a teacher to just leave in all the year? It's happening. It happens occasionally. And it happens for a variety of reasons. And in some cases, there are family emergencies. There are other cases in which personal life gets in the way. It is unusual. It has happened to me twice at Ludlow. Hopefully I'm not the reason people are leaving. But it does happen. And, I think once we get through this, we'll likely not have it because it's happened. Last year, Dan Gregory had to leave. So hopefully, fingers crossed that we've gotten this out of our system and we'll be good for another couple of years.
I will say that's an increased trend in all my time at the school district. I see it happen a lot more in the last few years.
It happens in most places after COVID. Plus the I don't want to be so pointed, but the younger generation, they view it more as a job than a career. And so the contract, they still have this idea that, oh yeah, it's a 2-week notification if they're going to leave, but it's not. You got a contract.
That was going to be my question. I know we don't want to hold people accountable to a contract if they're not invested in being here, but don't we get
30 days.
45, they're supposed to
Can you say that
have a
louder?
contract.
I thought
45
we
notice?
had to meet and release that contract, no?
I can double check. This was one that I did just because that's what I was used to in the other district. And rationale being is, like you said, it's not good to keep somebody here.
Right.
And you've got a couple of good people that are incredibly highly qualified. But yeah, I'll double check that because it's a good question. The other district, because it was policy governance, they just had me do it.
Any other questions? Craig, I was just going to ask you, in your attendance numbers for student-led conferences, were those 100% of families came in and did them, or was it a Zoom situation also? Or do your kids, if like a parent can't come, do they present to a staff member and you count that in your 100%?
The vast majority were live and in person. I think there might have been a couple, so I didn't really break that out. But we also, if somebody's sick, we even had a couple that we were finishing up.
So it's families coming in and doing it. It's not. I just know that we do 90% of ours families, and then there's a few we make it 100% because we require kids to present it to a staff member if a family member can't come. I didn't know.
Oh yes, we had one of those.
Yeah.
And Kelly, my numbers were changing as of
Daily.
today.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So as I read in the report, teachers are coming to me, oh, I just met with, or so-and-so just called me and we connected and they're, so those numbers have changed.
They might even go up for the rest of the
All right, principal curriculum. Yeah, that's it.
So Louisa won't be here tonight. She did update the paper report on the link. I can do a incredibly brief overview. A lot of the work right now is getting ready for the professional development day on the 21st. Emma and Julie as well worked very hard. Most of the PD days were already set up. And so they did an incredible job on that. One of the things that is going to be happening as part of kind of strategic planning as we get a little bit closer to the summertime is taking a look at the variety of initiatives that we have that are up and running. and talking with the principals about how they're going, which ones seem to be having an impact, and maybe kind of reading back a little bit. Because there was quite a bit going on. It's all good stuff. But unless it actually trickles down into the classroom and changes teaching behavior, then there's not going to be much of an impact. And so that'll be some discussions that we.
Any questions about curriculum report? And we can view it online if we want to. Okay. Todd.
Hey, good evening. I'm going to be very brief. Your schools are in pretty good shape. We had a little bit of a scare at Mount Holly with the roof, but Al got after it. Craig had called me. We determined it was ice backup from the large amount of snow that we got and then the rain. So a little scary, but we got that taken care of, and we have a plan moving in the future if that happens again to prevent that from happening again. I'm going to meet with Al and Craig tomorrow. We're going to go over some options on getting after the light issue in the gymnasium at Mount Holly, which has been ongoing for a couple of years now. So we think we have a plan for that. We're going to try to keep that cost as low as we can because budgets are getting tight now as we head for the home stretch down towards the end of the school year. Nothing pressing at LES, everything going along fine. So unless anybody has any questions, that's about it.
I wonder, maybe we should add, we recently had Control Tech to, now that we have a working furnace, they're just, we kind of touched on it last time, but they've come out a couple more times to make sure all the different pieces and parts of the heating registers are working, and we're in really good shape with that.
Everything now is top notch with the building management system. I worked with our tech director on that. I have a pretty good connection there. So,
Apparently not tonight.
yeah, well, somebody needs to stay home and take care of a little brown man. We have 4 legs. So, yeah, the way EEI put it was, we fixed the brain of the matter, which was the boiler, and then you had the appendages, which were all the classroom issues. CTI came in, did a great job. I checked the building management system in the morning. It's, Mount Holly is within 2 or 3 degrees of everything in each classroom, so that we're in very good shape there, knock on wood. So it's an extremely well done project.
Thank you. Questions for Todd? All right, perfect. Thank you. Cheryl.
So February's in folder, and we spent 57.15% of the FY25 budget. 66.67 would be 8 months. I think you'll see that close up next month when we pay more of the tuition. I just put in Green Mountains bill and still haven't heard from Mill River, and that will be the last big one.
Are they on the same schedule or not?
They are, but there's just, it's ish, I guess is the way to put that. No, we do it twice a year in November and March. But yeah, and some schools wait till the end, kind of can pre-do because they don't want to have to do an adjustment every time.
Right, because they can bill back. Yeah.
But yeah, we get it. So there's a few outstanding, but the big ones are Green Mountain.
We get money back.
Sorry, I wanted to ask him a question and she just snuck out.
So we pay Green Mountain, whatever we pay, right? Say like in November. And then that kid drops out or moves. Do they say, oh, here's your refund? Do you get it back?
Yeah, so that's me too. Oh, so yes. But I can't say that always happens as I'm like kind of signing off on bills. I kind of look, I rely on Patty, who's our super registrar, like to know when kids are moving. And we have had a lot of movement. We have some kids that, ended up moving up to Ludlow from the Chester area, so she put them on the list, but they have good residency, so I have no. Yeah, we do want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also have the allowable tuition after we do the staff report. They tell us what we're allowed to charge. And so if it's within 3 or 4% or more than 3 or 4% either way, then we get to get money back for it. We have to pay more. But that's also up to the district to do that. So I think budget is next.
I'll let you know.
Oh, no.
All right, so financial's good, and then old business, budget revote plan.
Well, we still have to just talk about the budget before we talk about.
Oh, I thought that was just all kind of in there. But
It's
yes,
all parts of the same.
Yeah.
So at least on the revote piece is Sydney was in contact with both town offices, so April 22nd, which is a Tuesday, is good. And so we can start actually kind of communicating that. The big thing is the board deciding, do you want to change what it is that's being presented to the community, keep it the same. We had a small turnout, at least at the open forum the day after the budget vote. At least the people that showed up there, they seemed to say, put it out as it is again, as it was again.
Spring break is the week of April 14th.
Yeah, this should be the week after.
Okay, so this would be the Tuesday.
I think the message that I heard from that small group, and it was a handful of people in person and a few online, I think the message was loud and clear from that group of people, very, I would almost say unanimous, to put it out as is based on the fact that it was very close, and also based on the fact that people in Mount Holly, at least, seemed to not get their information booklet and didn't have that information, didn't come to any informational meetings. So that was their take. The flip side of that is historically, when we've done that, people have been frustrated that we told you no, why are you trying it again? And I think we have to weigh that. That's my only.
I know of several people in Mount Holly who didn't know or forgot that it was voting day and were very upset that they didn't vote. I know that I won't vote for cutting anything out of this budget. I want the same budget to go up for a revote because I think the work is educating people. We saw last year that when we made a bigger effort, we got a better turnout. I want to try again with the same numbers.
You gave us a pretty good, they had really good ideas, some of which we're talking about here, but in terms of the communication plan, which I've got all nice notes on that we'll follow through on. So, yeah.
Have you figured out why the books didn't go to so many Mount Holly people didn't get it?
So my understanding was the information sent to the publisher who creates the books. Those books then go to a mailing house to get sent out, and the mailing house either shut down or went bankrupt in the middle of the process. This is what I was told.
The theory from our town clerk, for what it's worth, is that part of the process is, often you have more than one voter at an address, right? And you go through and you combine them so they're only getting one. And that her theory is that the people in Mount Holly who had the same address as a person in Ludlow, right, got deleted. Okay, it's like the same post office box or the same street number, right?
I don't see that because we sort by last name. So the two sheets have to be combined and then they have to be formatted correctly. And then they go through and look for duplicates. So the possibility of the duplicates might be if someone had the same name and they didn't look probably out at that.
Okay, I mean, she
said it has to do with the alphabetical order that L comes before M, so that.
Well, we've got a copy of the sheet that was used. We can compare it to the one we're going to pull to do the mailing. this time
Do you
around.
know some of the names of the people that did the booklets?
Sue Corvala, the previous.
Yes. Cavallo did not get one. Dave Venter did not get one. Kelly Tarbell did. So that's why alphabetical didn't make sense. And I said to Cheryl at the beginning, before the meeting, that, you know, at Mount Holly Town meeting, Dave Venter asked the group of people that were there, how many of you didn't get the booklet? And I would say about half raised their hand. And yeah, and it was, right, it didn't seem, when I looked quickly, because of course people raise their hand and then put them down.
It wasn't by.
It didn't
area
seem
of
like,
town.
oh, they all live in Belmont, or oh, they all live here. Like on a quick cursory glance, I couldn't come up with a theory based on who raised their hands. I was thinking it was going to be alphabetical or by geographical area. And somebody in, you know, some people in Belmont didn't get it, but others did. Some people out by Lake Nineveh didn't get it, but others did. Neighbors didn't even line up. So alphabetical didn't line up. So I don't know how that all happened,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think
50% is an odd number.
it was
No, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that might be indicative of something,
right.
just because of,
Yeah.
you know, it's half and half.
Right. It was about half of the people standing in the gym the night before.
Are we required to mail them out? We just leave them at the town office and people can get them?
So when we did the organizational meeting for Ludlow-Mount Holly, it was voted at that time that booklets would be sent out.
Okay.
But as a remedy, I know people at the central office already printed out more copies. I brought them up to Carol on Monday. I didn't have a chance today to ask her if she needs more, but she said she'd let me know. But so ahead of the next vote, the revote, we can definitely make that available. And when we put out information, we can include that to say, hey, we're sorry,
It also sounds like from the conversation that we had tonight, not that we would recreate that whole booklet, but there's some additional information that we could include, like the tuition and where the students go. That might be helpful so that maybe we could put together a few.
A mini booklet. Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like you get a mix of people, and there are people that want to go through line by line and dissect everything. And then there's people that you can say there's open forums and there's emails and there's social, and they just still are like, what's happening?
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and I think
Like,
there's
how do you not know wasn't it like every town in the state voting on
There-
it?
it-
Like, how do you not know to vote?
Yeah, there was a survey on the Springfield's, one of their Facebook pages, I don't remember which one, and it just simply asked, you know, if you didn't vote, why? And people obviously could or could not participate in this little poll. And a lot of people shockingly said they didn't know. And I feel the same way you do. Like, it's town meeting day. It's a big thing in Vermont. Everybody, it's like, but there's a lot of people who don't know. And when I went home from our town meeting, Ron was at our house watching Ludlow's town meeting, because in case he needed to answer a question. And somebody got up and said, there's a large group of people, younger generation, and it was a person from a younger generation, who said a lot of their peers and colleagues and people, they didn't know. And that person was trying to get the word out as well. And so, again,
Well, of course, for the revote, it's much harder.
Right.
Because it's right. It's the only thing happening that
This
day.
is interesting, though, that you touched on the younger generation, and the one thing, like, they're attached to these.
Right.
So if we could somehow tap into the automated texting system and send a text message.
Julie, what do you got to say about Facebook?
Well, are we talking about the text system?
Well, not Facebook.
I mean,
just a-
robocall gets
Okay.
families, but not community members at large,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah.
But it's still, at least, because the people that I were talking to were parents in the school.
Right.
Who were
Oh,
like,
they were emailed multiple times.
of course, but I'm saying if they get a text message.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking because the younger generation and social media, you know, the person,
Yeah,
they don't follow Facebook, they follow X, which is.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. I think it's like Snapchat or something. I don't.
Right.
X is old now.
That we don't even know about.
Right.
Is there a way to
TikTok. I was
expand
gonna
the
say,
characters to that?
you and I could do it a little bit.
But what you want to say, remember,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Right.
So also, now that we have to revote, remember we got billed last year from Mount Holly.
Right.
Like, tell them we're not paying for their dinner or their lunch.
Personally,
They tried to bill us.
I feel like it's so little, it's not worth the.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
That was actually a cheap bill for the
Yeah,
work.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Julie, were you going to say something about using Facebook and or not?
Yeah,
Because I
so-
know there's issue with it, but I'm pro it at the moment.
No, so Elaine and I have been working on this a while. There are 2 new Facebook pages, one for each building. We had to figure out, based on legal advice, how to establish those pages so that they didn't create an open forum. They were just an information outlet, which basically means comments are off. It's harder to do than you might think on Facebook, but I think we figured it out. We've got it. Mount Holly doesn't have a school Facebook page, so there's, there are no followers to bring in, because that's the problem, right? Only your followers see it. And so we're in a place where we have to build those followers. Ludlow has a page already, and they have followers, and we're trying to figure out how to merge them, because you can bring over the followers and leave the content behind. That's kind of the goal. The pages
And a
are.
lot of people in Ludlow are friends with each other and cross.
We've run into some problems with the merging. It doesn't work the way the support articles say it should. So I'm trying, that's been the next story of my life, the last 2 weeks to this. But we're trying to work on that. In the meantime, though, the pages are there. And we could put a text message out that says, visit us on Facebook, and say out there what we want to say. We've already posted the 2 articles that Lane put out and the FAQ. They're already sitting there on the page. The only 2 followers right now are me and Kelly English.
What is it?
But they're ready to go.
I would follow you, but I don't have Facebook.
So
We were going to talk this afternoon. If we had a chance.
That's for old people.
What's my zero? It is, but hopefully you get somebody.
I don't have.
Is it Mount Holly? Ludlow?
That's not what I want to do with my time.
Yeah, one is called, it's MT Holly School, Mount Holly School. And the other one is Ludlow Elementary School. Now, the Ludlow Elementary School one, you'll see 2. One of them has a bunch of followers. That is not the official page that we're trying to migrate from that. The other one, I try to mimic them so they look the same. So you just have to look at number of followers to know which one we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, this one has 336 followers.
Can you share it with me since you found it? Because the one I found isn't right.
She said that's not the right one. Only 2 people. followed
Yeah,
that
no,
one.
oh, yeah,
Right?
okay, then we both have the wrong. I'll keep looking for it. I think
And
that's,
we'll get communication out. If
I was
you all
gonna say, if we
decide
could
that's
get
what you want.
communication out, get it out through PTG. If everybody on PTG then can share it, I mean, it's the sharing that.
Right.
The posts can be shared, they just can't be commented on
Right,
that.
right. And then if we get people who are belonging to things like Okemo Locals and the ones I've been banned from, I just like to put that in there where I can.
So Amber just texted in there that the town of Chester has a robocall.
Oh, so does Ludlow, actually. I don't, but it's for emergencies and they might have policy about using it for something like that, but,
It's worth asking.
Yeah.
Because our text messaging system that is the same as the robocall, it's gonna go to families.
Right,
So if you're trying to
right.
get to people who don't have students in the school,
Yeah.
then you're not talking.
But even if that's the least, if that's the one thing we can do, there are still families
No,
that
it had to
didn't
reach
come
2
out
more
and
people.
know.
Come on.
Yeah.
right.
Agreed.
So yeah, if we could, the Ludlow one has only ever posted like water lights and things like that to
That's
mine, but,
That's an emergency.
right.
But they might have, if they have a robocall, they might also have the email, because they usually
Yeah.
go together in the same system.
So I think if we can get BTGs to share and do all the Facebook kinds of things, if we can get them to share it to places like Okemo Locals and all of those and the equivalent,
I have no doubt that they'll do that. They've been great. Kim's been great. I've been stealing her stuff and commenting on everything.
Right, well, they won't be able to comment, but yeah, so, and that, comments generate more, algorithm, which, so I don't know how it'll all work without having comments on, but anything is better than what we have. So I think that's awesome. Also, I heard that some of the road signs that went out were the ones that said to vote for the bond. I think those bad boys should stay in a dungeon for a while, and just get the school ones out, the vote ones, the very generic ones.
I think the idea was to get some stickers along with the date of the new date.
Yeah.
One that says budget.
Yeah, whatever. I just think if anybody saw that, which obviously they did, it was right there.
A no vote. Automatic no vote.
Right. Yeah, and we're gonna have those people that are automatic no's and the people that are automatic yeses, and so we're really looking at those people in between. Newsflash stuff. I know Dave has put some stuff out, and they have a Facebook, I think, too. If we can just start sharing it to those places, and going back to the poll that was on, I think that was also on Springfield's. It just said, how do you get your information? And a majority of people were choosing social media. It wasn't, Facebook versus X versus whatever, but it was social media that people aren't watching the news or reading papers or,
I think our lives are just really busy, and I think people forget about those things that aren't affecting them immediately, I think that's.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I don't do anything unless my phone tells me to do it, right? So I wonder if there's a way to put it as a calendar link so people could click it and it would say yes, and it would go straight to their calendar, and then they'd wake up in the morning and it would be like, go vote. I don't know, that if we can make it that easy, maybe then people would remember.
Everybody has a different calendar app.
Right. Right. Yeah, but yeah, again, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways to get it out, because I agree that I think that's,
One of the things that came up at the forum as well is the ability to get to the polls while the polls were open.
Right.
So I don't know, I had shared with Lane some things I found related to absentee ballots, and maybe we can get more participation that way if they can't get there between 8 and 4:30 or whatever the hours are.
Yeah,
Right.
Carol, the clerk, was saying if you call in Mount Holly and she recognizes your voice, then she'll mail it to you. If you stop by.
Right.
And she said email. If you put in your email what your.
The Secretary of State has a site too that lets you request a voting ballot. I don't know how that works.
said she'd only get requests.
Oh, really? So we'll get a local.
Can you give one more, because my mother forgot.
But an email, she said, you just have to verify your residency, and then she could check it against the list and mail it out, you mail it back. And then if you do it soon, like if we really did an early voting campaign, especially to the folks that we know are supporting.
And I bring it up because of the communication discussion, letting people know that that's an option.
Right, right.
Should be part of it.
Right. And when I spoke to Carol, her words were, it has to be the person that wants the absentee ballot to be the one asking for it.
Yeah, you can't ask for someone else.
Right. You can't ask for your household. You can't ask for, I can't ask for my mother. But, that's easy. And, if email works too, that's great. So if we can, put a big push on that.
Why can't we just mail them out the way that we mail out like an absentee ballot for?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because the general election, that's a general election. That's exactly.
There is a reason,
Yeah.
there's a legal reason why we can't.
Yeah.
No, it's a cost.
Because I talked to Carol about it real quick, and I don't want to quote her because I don't remember exactly what she said, but we no longer can do that since like 2022 or 2023, or I don't know. There was a date at which that stopped.
There was a no answer, I can't remember the answer.
Yeah. So I hear from Katie, and I think I heard from Dave, same budget, bigger push, bigger outreach. Jen is agreeing with that. I'm looking at Jamie and Julie.
And then you'd be also approving the date.
Okay.
So I think you have to agree on the budget and then.
Right.
we can approve the warrant.
Does she have to read it?
I love to have a dramatic reading of that. Oh, sorry. A little espresso before I came. I'm all good. All right. So hearing that we're sort of in agreement to put the budget forward,
Total and unanimous agreement.
a unanimous agreement to put the budget forward and do a bigger push for outreach
On the 22nd of April.
on the 22nd of April. I was going to read that. That's my dramatic reading. All right. So I will then read the warning for the Ludlow-Mount Holly Unified Union School District. Voting by Australian ballot, Ludlow Town Hall and Mount Holly Town Office, Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in both locations. The legal voters of Ludlow-Mount Holly Unified Union School District, consisting of the towns of Ludlow Town and Mount Holly, are hereby warned to meet at the respective polling places on Tuesday, the 22nd of April, for the purposes of voting by Australian ballot. The business to be transacted to include Article 1. Shall the voters of Ludlow-Mount Holly Unified Union School District approve the school board to expend $10,153,619.00, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The Ludlow-Mount Holly Unified Union School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $15,766.93, which is 23.31% higher than per pupil education spending for the current year. Approved at a duly warned meeting on March 12th, 2025 by the Board of Directors. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to accept, yes,
Accept the warning.
accept the warrant.
Perfect. Second. All right, so all those in favor of the warning as read?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Beautiful, so we should sign it. Can I use your blue pen though, Dave? Rather than, Kitty Kelly.
We got it.
I think part of like the big push should be like what Jimmy was saying is get the numbers out there. Like this also includes these 100 kids that are going to be not,
Yeah.
whatever.
That counts a third of the budget.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the number? 15,000?
No, it's 10,153,619.
No, like the per.
Oh,
Oh, it's-
15,766.
We're gonna do a report on that because we're so much lower than the state average.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna raise.
Yeah.
What is the same?
I have to look, I mean, I have what the threshold is. The threshold is 15,946, but that doesn't change the average. So we'll have to look up.
But it's much higher. The state.
Do you need a wet signature from me?
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
send it to you electronically tomorrow. You and
So,
Jamie.
so I can e-sign. I don't need a wet signature.
Yeah,
See,
And you'll get.
I mean, if you want to come in, you could do that.
Other right, yep. Cheryl needs that.
Cheryl?
Do you want to reach out to Katie Benson, Cheryl, and grab hers too?
I'll see Katie tomorrow.
Okay.
So I've got to get Katie Benson, so we'll be Friday. We'll be here Friday.
So while we're talking about that, I had the one question come up and like, I mean, this is so complex that like, I can't explain everything or begin to try. But one comment that I kept getting was, well, we should just close Mount Holly. And I'm like, that's not going to do us any good. I don't have a good rebuttal other than that doesn't really save you any money. And they're like, oh, well, the overhead cost. So I don't.
we did those actual numbers
I
and
know.
only a couple of cents on the tax rate.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
not save them a darn thing.
That's what I said. But my problem is I don't know how to quickly articulate that so they can understand
Katie
it.
just did.
What
Did we
Katie
save
just
money
said.
when the high school closed?
That's true.
Yeah.
What I think is the obstacle to just simply combining the two schools is that my understanding is neither school in its current form can currently accommodate the other one completely. So we would have to make a capital investment, i.e. a bond, in order to get the like physical school in a place where it could accommodate two populations. So, and we know how people felt about a bond, last year. Is that true though? Like, can Lane or someone comment on whether that's true?
First year would be, because you'd have to do some restructuring of, because as you have space, you use up space. So when my kids were in there was 240 kids, two classrooms for each grade.
So you have space.
So you have space, but
It's
there's just got to be some.
allocated differently.
Right. And so you have the locker rooms that you're not using, but they're full of stuff, from what I understand.
No, they're much better now. I've done a very good job.
I guess all I was saying was that I need like that one line blurb to be able to explain that, like, it's not really the overhead that we're paying for, because we still have to put that money in, right? Like, isn't that?
I think the short version of it, Jamie, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the short version of it is we have to pay for those students. The bulk of paying for a student comes from other reasons, education, books, staff, all of those things. The building piece of that pie and the one administrator is minimal. And when you divide that out, it doesn't really have a huge impact. And we saw that in Lane's numbers, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it was like, wasn't that the $44 or the 22? Yeah, it was like $44.
If you email it to me, that'll remind me tomorrow, and I'll go back and look at the presentation, and I can tell you how much the savings would be for the average tax.
Yeah, I feel like I tried really hard to do like a bullet point of things to think about. And when they come up with that, I didn't feel I had it well articulated that the cost isn't what she was saying, the cost isn't the building. You're not going to even save on the building. It's for the kids.
Yeah.
Well, and Katie's point, most people that were here and lived through the last several years, if you say that's what was supposed to happen when Black River closed, they'll tell you that didn't happen. So that's a short way to say it too.
It's also like going to the grocery store and saying, I'm going to save money. I'm not going to buy a pack of gums. Like buy the pack of gum. It doesn't have an impact on your overall bill is kind of where we're at the moment.
Unless you shoot on like my person.
Oh God, I can't.
You can buy a second home.
Yeah. All right.
The way you save money, right, if you combine the schools, is by having one first grade teacher for the 20 kids, right, instead of having two. I mean, that's what the governor wants to do, and that's why he gets his savings, right? By basically having half as many teachers as we have now.
These are people who are not in real schools with real children and have no idea what the real needs are.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see them try.
Yeah. But by the way, it also puts the power of what happens to your reserve funds in the hands of the Secretary of Education.
Oh, great.
That was one I picked up today from their conversation.
All right. So budget plan is planned.
Oh, so
Okay. Yes.
I'm the old guy. Should I write to the something for the Journal and the News Flash or?
Depends how many 4-letter words you're willing to use.
I think yes is the answer. Any communication we can get out there. And also when you do that, people respond to you. So people are seeing it. So I think yes, if you're willing, and I mean, we'll push it out on social media where we can. Committee reports, policy committee. I assume we're good. I know TRSU is working on, policy governance. Did I? Where did I skip policy?
Whole business.
I have an old agenda. I think you have a different.
Yeah, because my old business flips to the next page.
That's
I printed out the first time I get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was updated.
Should do that.
okay. Sorry, I was like, I did that last time too. All right, so budget plan policy committee, the only thing that's kind of working is TRSU does have the policy governance that it's working toward, but I don't know that the other policy committee, the more traditional one, is met, or if, Jamie, you were able to go.
I'm sorry, I've been outright.
We don't have any policies today, so maybe they didn't even meet. Facilities committee, we haven't met. The only thing I can report from our VTC is that their budget passed, which they were thrilled about. Policies approved at this meeting, none. Other public comments. I think we scared them away.
Looks quiet.
Policies.
I have a question. It could be, I guess, a public comment. Have we set the academic calendar for next year?
So I can actually email it out. The academic calendar is set pretty much by RVTC, and then everybody who sends kids there has a vote on it. But the vote's already happened, so I have the calendar. We just still have to decide. We were supposed to do it last Friday, but I was out at the principals meeting when we want our professional development days. So I can send the basic calendar out to folks, but it doesn't have what our PD days will be in it.
So it's a tentative calendar. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you want me to, I can email that. You want that publicly, which might confuse people, or just for board?
I think just for board at the
Okay.
moment, yeah, because it's not official, so.
And people, if you do it to the public.
Yeah,
then
and
you'll
people
want
will
with the
print
PD,
it and,
but,
yeah.
Print it too early like Cheryl.
Right. Yeah, like Cheryl. Policies, public comments. All right, next meeting. Our next regular meeting is April 9th. Regular meeting, why is that on there twice? Am I missing something, or is it just?
It's the same thing. So
Okay. In Ludlow. April 9th, 6 p.m. It's just randomly put on there twice. Okay. Board self-evaluation. We were given our materials and read them prior to the meeting.
Yes.
We were respectful of each other, the public and the administration.
Yes.
Thank you. Board members handled conflict openly and constructively.
Yes.
Board members focused on the role and the responsibility of the board.
Yes.
And board members acted as a team. Once a decision had been made, we worked collaboratively.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Who's going to do it?
I move we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.